Hello and welcome to the Gaggle Bubble Challenge, and if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, Liberation Day, April the 2nd, has come and gone, and President Trump announced massive tariffs all across the board. I mean, it's pretty much 10% on everyone, and then some against other countries that he deems
Boy, Vietnam really got it.
Vietnam got it. Some of some of the Southeast Asian countries got it. China, of course, again got it. Europe got it. Got a nice little 20% whack. The UK, maintained the 10%. Russia, 10%. Israel, interestingly enough, also got thumped. I think something like 17%. This is all across the board, and because basically the United States runs a trade deficit with everyone. That's how he calculated. We run a trade deficit with everyone, so everyone gets it. The stock markets, of course, have reacted negatively to it. But interestingly enough, the media, which always, absolute hatred for Trump, first of all, they're talking up the stock market crash. Apparently, they're all passionately concerned with the condition of the stock market.
Let me clutch my pearls. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh my God.
Yeah, as if the stock market has anything to do with the average consumer at all.
Absolutely, exactly. The percentage of the population that has any holdings in the stock market is infinitesimally small. So they're talking about that, but it's also interesting how everyone within the media and all the commentariat, everyone has suddenly become a convert to free trade, and it's an
Well, and
amazing.
they're all economists.
Exactly, they're all economists.
When it was Russia, everyone was an expert on Russia.
Like,
Now, when it
exactly.
comes to tariffs, everyone's an expert on economics.
Oh,
Okay,
exactly. They're
I
all
did listen to some real economists over the last 24 hours,
right.
and they have a thumbs down on this, but for reasons that I can understand. All the rest of them say this is just Trump, lunacy and all.
Yeah,
Well, that's just white noise. It doesn't
that's
help anybody. It's just waste of time.
it really is, because ultimately, I mean, what's a tariff? A tariff is a tax. It's a tax on imports. Now, I think it's a perfectly reasonable. I think, all kinds of other taxes, I think, are unreasonable. I think a death tax is very unreasonable. A family gets punished, they lose someone and they get hit with a tax. Property taxes are kind of, somewhat dubious. The most dubious of all, of course, is the income tax, whereby the government just takes 50% of your labor, and should you
and they get paid first.
they get paid
You
first.
get paid second,
That's right.
everybody.
Yeah,
When
you
your
get paid.
paycheck, the state gets paid first.
Oh, always, always, always. It's like when you declare bankruptcy, hey, creditors wait in line. The government gets first dibs. And so that's what happens. Then you have the income tax. That's 50% of your labor gone. If you object to that, if you decide, I don't think it's fair that I should give up 50% of my labor, you go to prison. No ands, ifs, and buts. You go to prison if you don't pay your taxes. Whereas with a tax on imports, you can always make a choice. I mean, you can say, okay, well, now this is too expensive. I'm not going to purchase a BMW. I think I'll go for some other brand. Same with the sales tax. Okay, sales tax. Okay, well, this is now a little bit expensive. I don't think I'm going to buy any more of these sugar riddled sodas. I'm going to buy healthier drinks. I mean, these are all decisions that you can make. Whereas with the income tax, and you can't make that decision. Death tax, you don't make those decisions. So this meltdown over tariffs is just so absolutely ridiculous and completely beside the point. Anyway, what do you think?
Well, yeah, okay. First of all, George and I huddled for a few minutes before. We don't know how this is going to pan out. Okay,
Exactly.
it could be very, very chaotic. It may be not as bad as everyone is with their hair on fire is predicting. To be honest with everyone, I simply don't know. This is something that every single country, every large importer and exporter is going to really have to thrash through. It's not going to be easy. It's very complicated. It's a very interconnected economy, and global economy. Now, I'm on the record here in saying that in principle, I'm not against tariffs. Okay, what Trump rolled out is who would have thunk? Okay,
Yep.
I mean that is it wouldn't have been imaginable before yesterday, and let's put it that way. Now,
Right.
the United States became a global industrial powerhouse in the late 19th,
Right.
early 20th century, precisely because of tariffs.
Right.
Okay. Now, why? Because you needed to protect domestic industry. Okay.
Right.
Let it develop. A lot of people don't know this. But the Transcontinental Railroad, great American story, truly is, and all of the ingenuity and the cruelty. And ask the Irish workers, ask the Chinese workers, but that was funded by British money and French money.
Right.
Okay, they had a big say in all of it, and that was a real wake-up call. Is it, from coast to coast, we have to have the wherewithal to build our own
Right.
domestic
Right.
industries.
Right.
We don't have to worry about the Bank of London if they get a run out of money or
Right.
something like that. Okay.
Right.
And so, and that's exactly what happened, George. I mean, tariffs were, American industry had to start from scratch and become competitive. And now most of the American economy is financialized. So what you're protecting is not, I'm not particularly
But that
clear on that.
right. But that's exactly the point. I mean, it's financialized because essentially America has hollowed out its industry, and that's the result of trade deficits. I mean, trade deficits mean jobs are going overseas. I mean, it means essentially you're importing more than you're exporting. It means that other people are producing manufacturing goods, and you're not. And so that means that this money, they're making money abroad, that returns to the United States into the stock market. And that's hence the financialization of the economy. And that's why you get this huge income inequalities, because the people who are involved in finance and the corporate shareholders who they're making money, they got their plants, they build their plants overseas, they're making money. And so you get greater and greater economic inequality. The people who are somehow involved in finance, and then ordinary people who used to make a living through basically having jobs, manufacturing industry jobs, they're not getting those jobs. Those jobs have gone. And so this is an attempt to do something about it. Whether it will succeed, that's going to take a
Yeah,
little bit of time. We're not.
I
It's
mean,
not going to happen tomorrow or the day after tomorrow.
instead of, I'd say, I intuitively would have thought about it the other way around. Is that okay? Does the United States, is there a manufacturer of toasters in America anymore? I would probably doubt it.
I doubt it
Okay,
too.
I
Yeah.
would doubt it. Now, I'm just going to use toasters as an example. Okay, well, maybe we should have an American toaster sector. What can we do to develop that sector? Okay. Well, South Korea and Mexico are the big toasters producers in the world. Well, okay, we're going to put tariffs on their toasters so we can build up ours. Okay, protect our nascent manufacturing capacity. Trump did it the other way around. Okay, I don't like these really broad brush stuff. I think the global economy is so much more complicated than that. Okay. Now, again, for the second half, I don't know how this is going to work out. I don't think anybody does. Okay. But I would caution everyone to listen. Professor Jeffrey Sachs had a very over at Judge Knapp. He had actually he got to talk, if you know what I mean, and to explain what he was talking about. It was very rational. He thinks it's a very bad idea. And then there are others that I listen to that think that this will be waved away in a matter of weeks, okay,
Yeah.
because of the what the global economy is kind of like oil prices. People want stability and they want to be able to look a quarter, 2 quarters down, okay? This kind of thing, nobody has visibility.
Right,
You're
right. But
gone.
I think
Okay,
but,
that's why a lot of people are
but
very very nervous about this.
well,
And of
yeah,
course, oh yeah, they $900 billion is wiped off the talk. You say who effing cares? Okay, I don't.
that's
Okay,
all that is. These are such. I mean, this happens all the time. You get these massive drops in the stock market, and then
and
it
then it's a
gradually.
buying opportunity.
Exactly, it's a buying opportunity. But the point is that the whole issue of the decline of American manufacturing industry, that has been a staple, particularly of the left. I mean, it really started back during the Reagan era. This used
Yep.
to be a standard criticism of the American economy, and particularly the American economy under Ronald Reagan.
And what have they done about it, George?
Well, what have they done about it? They haven't done anything about it until Trump. And Trump has now come along and said, well, we're going to try and do something about it. Again, we're going to see whether that works or not. But at least it is an attempt. I mean, it is saying, hey, we need to do, instead of just simply wringing our hands and wailing and moaning, oh, we've lost our manufacturing base, we've shipped jobs overseas and so on, and say, well, here is an attempt to bring jobs back. And I think I think it is important, because I think you need to produce. Ultimately, that's how you get to be prosperous. You need to produce. You need to have a strong
Exactly.
manufacturing sector. If you don't, and all you have is financial services or advertising or public relations, you're not a great power anymore.
Exactly. Remember the whole Harley Davidson
Right.
saga? I kind of lost track a few years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. But see, okay, here's an iconic brand. Okay. It's a good motorcycle. Are there better motorcycles out there? Yep, there are. There are. Okay. Particularly coming out of Asia right now. But, you know, and I know that at a certain point in time, the ownership, I think the original owners are long gone. I think it was some kind of investment group that bought it, and appeal to the Commerce Department, the Trade Department, and to say, look, we're getting killed by imports here. Can you please put on some import tariffs on these motorcycles to give us some breathing room to up our game? And I remember what happened was there was talk about this, and then they invested more in advertising. It's like
Right.
you're missing the point.
Right.
You're
Right.
supposed to make a good motorcycle. It's really interesting. It happened in the 1970s. And when cars were real cars, if you know what I mean, when I could fix a car when I was a teenager, I fixed cars, okay, because I understood how they work. I have no idea how they work now, okay? But, when I remember in my lifetime, when I was a young man, it went from the performance of the car, how fast it can go, miles per gallon, and then it shifted to how you feel
Right. Right.
in the car.
Right.
Okay. And that's all it's about, how you feel about it. It's not about, is it a good product?
Right.
No, it's how I feel about being in the car,
Right. Right.
which is just
No, no, I think
that's reckoning. That's reckoning
Oh,
stuff.
I think so. And I think that the American auto industry was really at the heart of America's being
Yes.
a manufacturing powerhouse. I mean, the big three were really the enormous reputation. And incidentally, many countries were constantly emulating American factories and American way of doing things. The way the American assembly lines work, including the Soviet Union. That's the Soviet Union got their ideas about how to run these huge factories and how to produce rapidly. Now,
They
that
made a
they
lot
got
of
it from
tanks,
the
made a lot
Americans.
of tanks during the
Exactly.
Second World
They
War.
got it all from the Americans. So it's hard to believe now what an enormous reputation American manufacturing industry had. So I think it is basically at the heart of your standing as a great power, and I think it does make sense to say that we can't go on having these trade
But
deficits,
George, but
consuming more than we're producing, which is what a trade deficit is.
we've been over this ground before. I mean, my biggest criticism or my biggest question is it too late?
Well, yeah, well, that's hard to know.
I mean, because these things take a lot of time. If this is not just an injection of capital you may need, but you need these kind of tariff protections, maybe some kind of technology boosts and stuff like that. This is a long-term thing. And in my lifetime, and I'm sure you agree with me, I don't like the term, shipping jobs overseas. No, they're just not producing in America. Okay. But I don't
But that
see,
is a shipping job because I mean the
yeah, I
corporations
mean,
decide that
it's
hey,
a job that an American never got. Okay.
right, but I mean if a corporation says, hey, I can produce this
Yeah, but
cheaper
you're
in
you're not
Vietnam,
employing Americans abroad. You're employing Chinese people.
yeah, but they
Let
work
me
for less.
finish.
Okay,
Let me
but that is
finish my
I mean
point.
it is a strategy. It is definitely an industrial
Yeah.
strategy pursued by corporations.
I just don't like China stole our jobs.
Oh,
Okay, no,
and
it was
that's a
American
different issue. No.
corporations
The
that made the
corporations did this,
decision.
yeah, but the corporations did ship these jobs overseas. So there's, hey, we can do this cheaper
Cheaper.
in China or in Vietnam, and suddenly, you really kind of destroyed, vast areas of the American Midwest that used to have this,
But can that
produce.
be reversed? That's my question,
Well,
Joe.
we'll have to see. I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, to me, it seems like it's worth trying. I mean, rather than just giving up and wringing your hands and just say, oh, the jobs are gone, learn to code. This sort of like, this was the theme of the Obama years. So at least I think it's worth trying. I mean, I don't know whether it can
I
be.
don't know either.
We'll
I
know,
really
I
don't.
guess, within the next 5, 10 years, whether this worked or not.
I think the next 5 weeks we're going to find out at this
The five
point.
weeks will probably find the stock market, but I think the stock market slide will stop precisely as you said because hey, now there are cheap bargains to be had, which is what happens when the stock market slides. Hey, now I
Yeah,
can
but
make
I
a
mean,
killing.
I don't even know. This is how bad it is. Can you even speak in terms of American capital anymore? I don't think you can. And the national interest is faded away,
Well,
during the time of
that's right, but the
Reagan years.
right,
We've
but the
never had it
idea that's
since.
right, but the idea is that I mean, Trump isn't saying we can't have Chinese capital coming into America or or Vietnamese capital. He says, yeah, you come in here, you invest, you don't pay a tariff. I mean, and he's saying it,
Yeah, yeah.
that's it. Saying, yeah, that's all. I don't care whether you're from Zimbabwe. Well, I don't think Zimbabwe has much capital,
Yeah,
but the Chinese or the Indians do have capital. Invest here, you don't pay a tariff. Build your
yeah, but I
factory
just,
here, no tariff.
but even I think the question has to be asked also is that, let's say parenthetically, a Chinese producer, they make pretty good cars now. And they come and they, do everything the Americans want. I mean, but will their workers be able to buy that car? I mean, that's what Henry Ford, that was his
Right,
mission. He wanted to build a car that his workers could
right,
purchase.
right.
Okay. That
No,
it seems kind of obvious now. It was genius at the time.
right,
It was genius.
right. He paid
Okay.
them well. That was key. That these jobs were very well paying jobs. That was
For generations.
the passage into the middle class life was you got these good jobs, good unionized jobs in the auto industry, in the manufacturing industry, and that was at the heart. That was something the famous American prosperity, and this again was people around the world admired this. Hey, these are workers. I think we always imagine workers are poor people, wearing that cloth cap. Here, these are American workers who live in big houses, own two cars. And so that really was at the heart of the American dream, and I think that was the American dream. You're working class and you're making good money.
A car in every garage, and a chicken in every pot.
Exactly, exactly.
I don't know. I simply have no idea how this is going to pan out.
No,
Okay. But the way we began, I think, is appropriate. Uh, Settle down, everybody. Settle down. Okay. Listen to people that know what they're talking about. Most people have no idea what they're talking about on anything these days, in my opinion.
I think
Okay.
yes, yes.
Well, it's true.
No, I think
It's
it's true.
true.
Yes,
Okay.
it really is. Yeah. Um,
But what needs to be addressed, and I think it's been forgotten by both parties, and recently the GOP has appealed to working class people, which is, again, in my lifetime, is a remarkable turnaround. I
right.
mean,
I should
but
say the United Auto Workers, no friend of Trump, are supporting what Trump is doing. I mean, that's quite a turnaround because even in the last election, the UAW was strongly supporting Kamala Harris, but this time, they've turned around and said we support what Trump is doing. So that really is a big turnaround. I mean, we had the Teamsters supporting Trump. Now you have the United Auto Workers. So that is, as you said, that's a big turnaround. That's it.
Yeah, but the danger is here is that going back to the toaster, will be if there isn't an American toaster and you have to rely on a Japanese one and it's just too expensive. I just can't afford it. Okay. That's what it's going to get down to. And the MAGA has to be very, very careful about that because it could end up being a lot of these tariffs could hurt that base. I don't know, but it's in the cards, everyone.
But again,
I mean, just showing a chart and just
right,
like,
but
oh my God. I
that's
mean,
that's the
and I mean, even the methodology is kind of
oh
dodgy.
yeah, that's right. But that's the great thing about the tariff is that once the Japanese, these export-driven economies, once their goods are not cheaper than the domestically produced goods, they're suddenly domestically produced goods as long as they have quality, as long as they can maintain quality, then they become attractive. But again, keep in mind, Trump has said if you're a Japanese toaster maker and you decide to build your factory in the United States and hire American workers, that's all. It's a Japanese toaster factory. Fine, no tariff. We'll sell.
Well,
We'll have
and it's
Japanese
already
toasters
happened
being sold.
because of the Nord Stream fiasco. German companies went to America.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
so it's everybody. It's a really, really thick bag of mixture right now. Okay, because the longer George and I talk about it, the more we can come up. Well, that they potentially are a winner. They could be in trouble. We
Right.
could go through this, sector by sector. It's hard to say how this is going to pan out, but we don't have 5 years. Okay, we don't, and I think there's going to be a lot of pain.
There's
Okay,
got
a
to
lot
be,
of
yeah. I mean, the idea is, of course, the short-term pain. I suspect, I mean, yes, in the sense we don't have 5 years, Trump isn't going to be there in 5 years' time. I would be surprised if whoever comes after Trump, Democrat or Republican, is just going to
we'll
remove
continue
tariffs.
it.
Yeah,
We'll
I think
continue
they
it.
will continue it in the way Biden did. Biden did not remove the Trump tariff. So once Trump imposed
Or
it,
the tax cut.
or the tax cut. So the Democrats, of course, they're objecting to it, but faced with actually, hey, are you really going to get rid of these the tariffs? You're going to really allow a flood of imports into the country? They're going to decide, hey, that may not be. We're going to upset our base, which is working people.
Yeah. Yeah, Cory Booker is waiting in the wings, everybody. What a fiasco that was. What a joker that guy is. I stood up to Trump for 25 hours. Yeah. How did that help the working class? How did it only helped you? It's all about
Yeah,
you, Cory
exactly.
Booker. As usual, it's only about you.
And it
I
doesn't.
just think
That's
this
right.
these people are so narcissistic.
It really is because filibustering at least makes sense if you're filibustering a legislation.
Legislation.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody passed a legislation and you filibuster to prevent this being enacted into law, then you filibuster and then you can say, oh, well, I prevented this from becoming law. But just simply going on and on and on for 25 hours, how does that help anyone?
Did you see how happy he was with himself?
Right,
It just, God, that's what's wrong.
right.
You know, Trump's gambit, and that's what it is, everybody. But George is right. At least in my lifetime, an American president is saying, enough is enough. This is not working. We got to try something different. It could create a disaster. I don't know, but
Right.
at least trying something here.
That's right.
Again, to reiterate, in principle, I'm not against tariffs. Okay, the way this is being rolled out blows your
Well,
mind.
again, but I think we remember that this started in the 1980s. This moaning about the hollowing out of American industry. Started under Reagan. I don't know how many books were written about this. All these industries going
40 years.
40 years, and this went on and on and on, and then finally, the United States government decided we're going to do something about it. We're going to stop this hollowing out. Now, just to say right away, oh, well, it's going to fail or it can't possibly succeed. I think that's absurd. I think you got to wait. Let's see how it goes. There's obviously some of these tariffs are going to be removed. I think there's going to be negotiations with different states. Like maybe they're going to sign free trade agreements. In other words, both sides have to absolutely remove all tariffs and all non-tariff barriers. I mean, like the British are already trying to negotiate something. So there could be something like that. But I think, start, just simply dismissing it out of hand. I think that's silly. The media, of course, are doing that. They're thinking this is an absolute disaster, horror, shock, and they send these reporters to the stock market. What's going on in the stock market every 15 minutes, or what's happening in the stock market. I mean, what do you care? What does it matter? But that's where the media are just trying to whip up this hysteria. They often do this. Like you remember Brexit. Brexit was going to absolutely tank the British economy. That's it. The mass starvation in Britain. It never happened. I mean, Britain has many economic problems, but they predate Brexit.
Oh, COVID.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. All right, let's wait and see, everyone. I mean, in principle, something had to be done and something is being done. Is it the right thing in the right magnitude? I have no idea. I don't think anybody does, to be honest.
That's right. Exactly.
All right, everyone, we're going to keep an eye on this one. I don't know who feels liberated right now, but Trump is, for better or worse, he's following through.
That's right.
Again, in my lifetime, presidents don't do that.
No.
They have spin meisters come out and say, "Oh, and we're doing, of course, Inflation Reduction Act."
That's right. And then
does anybody know what that meant? What it
no,
meant?
none at all.
It looked like just one, printing a printing machine for special interests to me. Okay, and it looks like it was exactly that.
Right.
Okay, did you notice inflation go down? Nope. Okay.
Right.
Okay, I think that Trump should have the Make American Eggs Great Again. Okay, we got to get to that egg issue there.
But that seems
handle
to
the eggs.
At least that's stabilized. I think the egg prices are going down. So that whole, the dollar and egg.
We have the egg index. Okay, I'm sure there is one. I'm sure there is for egg producers. Anyway, we're going to keep an eye on this. It's obviously developing. I'm watching international reaction to it all. Trump loves it, okay? Because the more hate he gets, the more energized he is.
That's right.
Okay?
That's it. Yeah.
All right, everybody. This is Gaggle with Peter and George. We're on Local, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. This is part of our Friday wrap. George and I will reconvene on Sunday, and with the grace of God, we'll do a live stream. Good one we had this week.
Exactly. Everything went smoothly. No hiccups. And now you got to think about these dogs. You can hear from this growling and this rushing around that they don't care about the tariffs. They want the tip jar situation addressed. That's the serious international crisis. So when they said, "Oh, the stock market is tumbling," you said, "Yeah, of course the stock market is tumbling."
But you don't want big Chihuahua.
That's right, exactly. So yeah, if you don't want the stock market to tumble, you got to put some coins into the tip jar. Paper is better. So we're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology, and above all, we're gonna calm the dogs down. Yet the stock market will recover. The tip jar will start to fill. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye bye.